the truth is, it is remarkable to me that we have been able to grow together as a show and as a family and as a listenership, and as Noles and non-Noles and everybody else that contributes. It's unbelievable to me that we cashed in to the tune of over 18,000 on the last show we did together here. And it was unreal because people kept giving after the show ended. That's why we wanted to update you. It ended up being 18,600. So thank you. It is a goal that will be very tough to beat next year, but hey, we'll have fun trying. By the way, the 18.6, not to brag on ourselves, doesn't even count the actual bowling tournament and the people that brought gift cards and gifts to that as well. I know of thousands of dollars that were brought in on that day as well. So very exciting. And you know what? Yesterday, while we were all opening gifts, if you had paused to think about those kids, the guardian ad litem and the advocates that work for them and help them, just know that many of them, thanks to you guys, had a fantastic Christmas, or certainly a better Christmas than they would have had. And that is, it's heartwarming. It's genuinely heartwarming. There isn't much in the world that is, and that's because of you guys. Thank you. Now, on to the Noles, which we haven't had a chance to catch up on. They've been busy. And, you know, I think the other thing we were talking about the last we got together was where are the linemen? I think I'll just boil it down to that, Tom. Where are the effing linemen? Because every time I would hear about a receiver that was visiting, Deuce Robinson being the exception, every time I heard about any other position, quite frankly, and that includes tight end, that includes defensive back, or anybody else for that matter, I'd go, okay, great. Give me the offensive and defensive linemen. And what I thought we would do here is sort of a summary catch-up in terms of Florida State football transfers, those that are coming in and those that have gone out. And I guess we'll start with Micah Pettis, Tom, the offensive lineman that came in from Ole Miss, who is giant. And, I mean, do you want to start there? You think it's a good place to start since it's the last name that we had on the list?
Yeah, it's the most recent addition. He came in 2 days ago. That was Christmas Eve. And, things were trending pretty strongly for him. 6'7", 330 pounds. And this is somebody who, if you care about Pro Football Focus likes a ton of snaps in his career to this point. This is somebody who, if you're going to want to run the ball and move people off the line of scrimmage and, cloud of dust approach, where you're going to run 60% of the time, 70% of the time when the game's in the balance, this is the type of player you go get. Sheer mass and SEC experience. And from what I can gather, just looking at his participation numbers, it's not like he was a cast-off or somebody that was buried in the depth chart. This is somebody who played a lot. So this is quite the get to pair with the other two guys that you got that we can talk about in a little bit. But, yes, very, very nice get just before Christmas.
I think the thing about him is that within the realm of the SEC, he is a good offensive lineman. He has been a productive player. He's amassed a ton of starts for a good football program that has won some big games against top-tier competition. Is he elite? No, I don't. I would not put him in the category of elite. Is he better than what you have, meaning us? Yep. Yes, he is. And I think we get back to defining our terms with this stuff, Tom, which we've talked a lot about, and that is you don't have time to project right now. You've got to have production. You got to have guys that have shown you at this level they can be productive the day they get here, the day they suit up. You know, from watching the film at whatever level they played at, I'm not excluding people who played at lower levels. Lord knows we've had a lot of success with guys like that. And right now those guys are having huge success in the NFL if you just talk about a Braden Fisk and a Jared Verse alone. But, this reminds me a little bit of an offensive version of what we ended up doing when we were raiding South Carolina so frequently, on the defensive side. Keir Thomas and guys like that we brought in, that you knew they had been productive. They had been good players. You were excited to see what they would bring to the table. because they had played at a high level against really elite competition, and they hit the ground running. They came in and played really, really well. And I think that's what you get here, is that you get a guy who's played big time football in a big time conference. Micah Pettis should be able to come in and play right away and be very, very productive for you. So that's a huge grade. I'm not typically into giving grades per se, but I think that's a big, big get for Florida State.
No, it is. 763 snaps last year, all at right tackle. So you've got your anchor on the right side. Gunnar Hansen had played left tackle for Vandy. You can see how the vision is coming together with your two SEC offensive linemen. And again, just to give you a basic idea about the grades from Pro Football Focus, the overall numbers are healthy, but I'll just give you personal takes on the numbers. Dominant against programs like, and let me finish before you go, well, this is nobody, Wake, Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi State. Dominant performances in all those games. Mediocre performance against LSU, where he was far better against the run than the pass. South Carolina, not so hot. Worst performance of the year. Georgia, better than South Carolina, but not great. So what you're seeing is somebody who can, against the lower half of one of the best conferences in the trenches, certainly the best conference in America, produce. So if it's somebody you should beat, he is going to beat them. If it's somebody who's upper tier, he's going to struggle. But again, who doesn't struggle with upper crust SEC defensive lines? Most everybody does. And the numbers aren't like Jawan Williams when he's bad. The grades are in the 40s or the 50s. They're not a 0. They're not a 10. So you've got somebody who is above replacement level at right tackle, and you brought in a couple other guys in the last few weeks that can help you at left tackle and probably left guard as well.
Well, Jawan Williams catching strays on a Thursday.
Sorry, I know. I guess Christmas is over, huh?
That was well done. By the way, others that have left the program, we're going to go like in order that they came in and left is how we're going to do this, or at least it's on 3 sorted them, and they were officially in and out of the portal. DeMarco Ward left, obviously, and he ends up at Memphis. Good luck to him. Durajaye, Tom's guy, is going to go play good football for Illinois. You know he is, Tom. You know he is. Illinois plays good defense.
I feel like what's unfortunate is that body type does kind of work in the 3-3-5. Oh, well, glad you're here for a year. I don't want to say, what could have been, because I don't believe he was going to be a dominant player, but damn it, man. Okay. It's like Dennis Briggs. You go, I feel like we could have gotten something more out of you.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good comparison. Durajai will go play good football at Illinois. Sean Murphy didn't do anything here. He goes to South Carolina. Florida State brings in Deuce Robinson. And Deuce Robinson is a wide receiver that was a 5-star coming out of high school, a legacy, Dominic Robinson's son, for those of you that don't know. Here's the thing about Deuce Robinson, and let's just say it. I mean, he's a giant. You're talking about 6'6", 6'7", 225, 230 pounds. He is sort of a hybrid receiver / tight end. He wants to be a receiver, obviously, and is fully capable of being exactly that. Florida State's had a lot of success with giant wide receivers who are sometimes projected more as tight ends than receivers. This is a guy, when you want to know what kind of athlete he was or is, was heavily projected and courted in baseball. He was an MLB prospect as well. Goes to Southern Cal out of high school and is fairly productive. In his first season there, USC turns out to be very dysfunctional. It's hard to fathom what's going on right now at Southern Cal, but that's not our concern. We've got our own problems here at Florida State. And nonetheless, Deuce Robinson believes in the vision. Comes here on a visit. Now, this is a kid that could have gone to Arizona State right in his backyard. I was really worried that with Dillingham there and with Arizona State having made the playoff and win the Big 12, that they might have the upper hand, Tom. So I think it bodes well that you bring in Deuce Robinson, obviously 6'7", 230 plays. And when you think that, what his best days are ahead of him, he's only getting bigger and stronger. He's early in his career. But one of the things that I really look at here is this was a success from the staff. This was a success with the hirings. This was a success to get him in a room and sit down and talk, because Dominic Robinson is a smart guy who's around and in football, of course, played college football here at Florida State, but understands the recruiting game, understands the NIL game, understands options, understands how to get the best for his son. This is again a family that is savvy and well regarded. You won them over. Now, there's no doubt heartstrings were pulled, but you had to have had a cogent plan, something succinct that you were able to sell, something you were able to sell him on and have him believe. And so that's exciting to me because, that was a makeshift operation that he was walking into. You were doing this on the fly where he had alternatives. Anybody in the country wanted Deuce Robinson. So you were able to win a battle for a player that everybody wanted. And you had a slight advantage again because he's a legacy, but you had to have had a good plan. There was no willy-nilly, screw it, let's just choose Florida State. If that were the case, he'd have done it out of high school.
Yeah, no, from what I was told, and everybody can read in the obvious here, but from what I was told, the first phone call with Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn was what put Florida State in the driver's seat. And that call came the first day that Deuce was in the portal. But the pitch was said to have been so good that Deuce actually got fired up about the pitch, not something that he did on the high school front when it was time for that recruiting part of his life. And then in the transfer portal, any contacts he had, I know that they had a dinner with Hines Ward at one point. See, that's the part with Arizona State, man. You sit down with Hines Ward, who's an extremely physical receiver, big-bodied receiver, not 6'6", but you get the point. He used every bit of size that he had. That's an attractive pitch to make, is I know what it takes for you to get to the NFL. I'm a Hall of Famer, essentially.
Yeah.
So he still... The call from Mike Norvell, Gus Malzahn was the thing that made the difference, where Florida State then could secure a visit. And then FSU stayed in contact around the clock with the Robinson camp, including Thomas Castellanos, who impressed the Robinson camp and Deuce very much. They wanted to align Deuce's visit with Thomas being on campus and officially entrenched here in Tallahassee. They did that, and it was successful to the point that they were supposed to leave and go to Louisville on Saturday before Christmas, and they did not. They canceled that visit, stayed on campus for some extra time. At that point, once you tell Louisville, I'm not coming, and there's a moratorium on visits that we're in right now, it started last Sunday, that's when you knew that Florida State was in the driver's seat, and they just needed to make sure that all I's were dotted and T's were crossed, and they were. So Florida State got the good news Sunday night.
Just so you know, Hines Ward is the semifinalist currently for the Hall of Fame, and he's got one last bridge to cross.
Yeah, he's gonna be, but you know how slow they are with receivers. I mean, it takes forever.
Yeah, it's a convoluted process too. It's tough. By the way, he and James Harrison are on that list. Just an aside, just because we like to educate. Yeah, so good. Deuce Robinson in the fold, big get for Florida State. I thought obviously that's a good sign. There's been a lot of good signs since the season ended after a disastrous 2-10 campaign. This was one of them, along with, as we said at the outset, Micah Pettis. Going down the list, Patrick Payton, since we've last talked, took it on down the road. He's going to LSU. Here's the thing about Patrick Payton. Everybody's seen him. He can be really, really good. He can be really, really bad. He can be completely indifferent. He can be locked in care. You don't know. I never got the sense that Patrick Payton loved it here. And I never got the sense that Patrick Payton was totally bought in, ever. And I never got the sense that Patrick Payton certainly was a leader in the locker room. Given the ungodly collapse that Florida State suffered a year ago this past season and the lack of leadership in that room, you almost had to let Patrick Payton go, Tom, even if he wanted to stay. I don't know what the situation was. I don't know how much they tried to convince him. I don't know what the interview process was like. I was of the mindset that while his talent, when engaged, is the kind of player you want on your roster, I just saw too many moments, too many situations where he was a problem more than he was an aid to your situation. I'm not sad to see Patrick Payton go. We'll see what happens with him at LSU. He may end up being very productive there. It's in him. It's in him to do so if they can pull it out of him.
Yeah, I'd say that if you want a definition of how important was the leadership structure in 2023, Patrick Payton is the perfect way to point to it, because he was a model player for Florida State in 2023, did all the little things, played smart, detail-oriented. That's a shame. But that doesn't mean his career's over, because you're right. If he's engaged and if he takes this as a point where he can learn a lesson while lining his pockets with some excellent NIL dollars from Florida State before he goes to LSU, then he can parlay that into some good film, and NFL teams will forget about the bad year, largely speaking, and they'll draft him in a good position. He has that kind of talent. We'll see if he can get the most out of it at LSU.
Randy Pittman comes in. He does so from UCF, one of many UCF guys that Florida State was targeting. This is an interesting prospect because he too, Tom, has been very productive, 6'2", 230 pounds, comes in right away. This was a get on December 21st that Florida State brings in. I actually sneaky like this get because of Malzahn's offense and his place in it.
Oh,
I thought this was a
100%.
good get.
Oh, me too. I mean, this guy that's all the offense that he knows, the only offense he knows in college. This was a player who was committed to Florida State initially and did not sign with Florida State. Instead, we lost him to UCF, not because we got somebody else that we loved. We wanted Randy Pittman to be a part of that team.
Yeah, indicative of the problem recruiting here, yes.
Yeah, and I get Landon comes in, and you've got a good situation there with him, and potentially Amari Williams, who's going to get a look at defensive line in spring. But maybe Amari plays a little bit of both. This is a nice fortifier, no matter how you want to slice it. This is a nice fortifier because you can see a line of succession with Randy Pittman, Landon Thomas. I'm assuming he's going to stick. Nothing ever is assured, but I'm assuming that Landon Thomas is going to be a part of your tight end room this whole offseason and into the 2025 season. And then Chase Lofton, the kid you brought in out of the state of Nebraska in high school, who Mike Norvell dubbed the number one target that they were after. Number one target that they were after in the 2025 class. He's at 6'5". This is a player over 400 yards receiving this year for Randy Pittman. He's got that stocky build to him, kind of more like of a Jaheim Bell than Tony Gonzalez or Travis Kelce. So it's a good fit. I agree with you. This is a nice player that already knows everything about the system, which will be valuable on that in that offense too. When you're talking about breakaways, maybe the twos are running out there, he could speak to the other receivers. He could speak to other tight ends and offensive linemen about their responsibilities and what Gus Malzahn and Herb Hand are actually asking of them. It's a nice get.
Yeah, productive. And then also, I think with him, I mean, you're talking about top six in the portal for the tight end position. You got one of the upper crust guys at a position that in this offense is unique and interesting. And, of course, in football in general has become absolutely vital. So next up, Deontay McCray comes in from Western Kentucky. He's the edge rusher at 6'4", 250 pounds. I'm not going to lie to you, Tom. Didn't watch a single Western Kentucky game.
Yeah, that listing is incorrect too. Florida State lists him at 280, and he was asked about it when he was on campus. Are you actually 280? Because he doesn't look that size.
He doesn't look 280 at all. That's an interesting answer.
And his answer is yeah. It's just the way he carries the weight in the frame. But Florida State, when they put out the release with Mike Norvell's quote, listed him at that level. So you are talking about one of those giant edge setting type, edge rushers or defensive ends that you want in a 3-3-5. I don't know that he was option alpha, so we'll have to see what the production is like in spring and how he fits. But certainly that is a lot of size that if you're going to be playing a 3 down lineman front and you want to stop the run, I like when you pair something like that, in theory, at that size with a Darrell Jackson, and then whatever it is you're going to do with that third position on the defensive line. You've got obviously a few options there. This is an interesting ad. I would put it in the camp of interesting, not a slam dunk, but he's a large human being.
We're going for numbers here. It's like evolution and insect survival. You just throw numbers at the problems, guys. So he may work, he may not. I hope we sign 57 more players. Just keep bringing them in. Just keep bringing them in. We'll find some guys that can play. By the way, does Florida State play Pitt next year?
Ooh, I think so. Hang on.
Yeah, put you on the spot. Didn't tell you I was going that direction. Hard right turn from your boy here.
Yeah, we do, and we host them.
Good. I'm glad we host them because Deuce Spann left Lakewood High School and took it on over to Pitt. We'll see Deuce back at Doe Campbell Stadium this upcoming season. Grady Kelly transferred to Michigan State. We wish both all the luck in the world. Thought Grady played pretty decent this year in his role. Deuce obviously had an electrifying kick return against Duke and is a guy that had a lot of skill, but was a quarterback in high school and struggled to make the transformation to wide receiver. And, you look at him, you think he should be a pro, wide receiver, but the production was never there. Gunnar Hansen comes in. That's the offensive lineman that I was so excited about. We did have a chance to already talk about him. We won't spend a lot of time on him. This is a young man that has played a ton of football and been hugely productive at tackle. He comes from Vanderbilt. He had a nearly perfect grade against Alabama, didn't give up a sack. This is a big, big get for Florida State. I already like his attitude online too, Tom. I don't know if you've seen it, but my man has just talked about, I came here to win games. There's no pity involved. I'm coming here to kick some ass.
Well, let's hope he does that. The one thing I would caution here is of the 2 tackles that Florida State brought in from a PFF standpoint, so I just throw that out there, Pettis is by far the more consistent player. His worst grades, like I said, were in the orange, so to speak, around 50s.
Yeah.
Gunnar Hansen did have a game against South Carolina where his pass blocking grade was a 4.8. A rough day at the office. Now, he has those days against Alabama, like you're talking about, where he was not just the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, but the Outland Trophy National Offensive Lineman of the Week, where he turns in grades that are immaculate without offering up a sack or allowing a sack. Last year, 379 snaps at left tackle, 326 at right tackle. So he did play on both ends of the line. I would imagine since Pettis played 100% at right tackle, Gunnar Hansen is the leader in the clubhouse, minus odds to be your starting left tackle this season.
I find it curious. This is where you're at a disadvantage until you deep dive in the summertime. Like, if you want to go through every one of his games, we'll get a better sense. If, we'll do this for the new guys, obviously just to get a sense of who they are. But how does a guy have a grade like that against South Carolina and then be the offensive lineman at the most important position on the offensive line against a team with elite athleticism in Alabama? How are you the best offensive lineman in the country in that competition where you pull off the upset of the year and then you're that bad against South Carolina? Was he hurt? Was he playing through something? I mean, you have to wonder. You don't know. So that's you're right to bring up the yin and the yang there. But Gunnar Hansen comes in. He is 6'5", 300+ pounds. James Williams transfers in from Nebraska. We already knew about this. He's a 6'6" edge. I think anybody you get from Nebraska that played a lot is important. I think you're going to need guys that are going to help you seamlessly transition into this 3-3-5 and know what Coach White wants. I was really excited about that get. That's a 4-star get too, by the way. He's a real talent. Luke Kromenhoek left us. We know that. He ends up at Mississippi State. We wish him well. Destin Hill was one of the first guys to make it sting when we found that Florida State was losing a player. Every other guy, you kind of went, Destin, I was a little saddened by after all they had invested in the talent that we saw. He, too, goes to LSU, joins Patrick Payton. I wish him well, I suppose. Julian Armella transferred to UCLA. We'll never hear from him again. He was never any good. Stephon Thompson comes in. That's another Nebraska player. That's a huge get for Florida State. He's a linebacker. Lord knows we haven't had productive linebacker play, or at least consistent linebacker play. You bring in a kid who's 240+ pounds, sort of a hybrid linebacker, Tom. Edge guy, linebacker, plays a role. He really, again, another Nebraska guy that you wanted to bring in and that you were able to bring in. This next guy makes me smile. I'm rooting for it to happen. Nothing happened for him at Arizona State after he had one great season here in Tallahassee and then a doghouse season in Tallahassee. He left the program, comes back. Marqueston Douglas Biscuit comes back to Tallahassee. Look, when he's right and he's in shape and he's engaged, he's a good football player. It's a nice add at the position. He can be a very good blocker when he cares to do it. I like the get. I just don't know which version we're getting.
Yeah, my guess is that he was brought in from an NIL standpoint for $50, and you're bringing him in to block. I think that's what the mission is, especially when you sign Pittman. You got him before Pittman committed from UCF.
Yeah.
But the moment that you get Pittman, and you look at what else you have in that room. Let's just say Amari Williams is a two-way player for you next year, and Landon Thomas is who he is. And Marqueson's in here to be the second tight end who will be wide open 8 times next year because you're not accounting for him.
Well, Mike always schemed a couple wide open plays for him, which is always great.
Well, there was the one at Pitt last year, which was unbalanced. He was lined up at left tackle, technically speaking, but an unbalanced, and he was wide open for a touchdown. That's going to be who he is. And if he wants to block at 280, unless they want to convert him to tackle, I don't know. That's the only other path I could see. I doubt that's in the cards for him, though.
I once thought that was the angle for him. I really did, because he had such great feet, and we've seen transitions like that from tight end. But I think he lost a lot of weight at Arizona State, from what I can tell. We'll see. We'll see what he is. Thomas Castellanos comes in as quarterback. Look, I'm on record with this as saying, do I think ultimately you're going to win a national championship running this offense with this kind of a quarterback at 5'10", maybe 5'10", 190 pounds? No, I don't think you are. Do I think you can run this offense with a guy like this and win a bunch of games in the ACC and get back into playoff contention? I do. It's sort of the trade-off. I think this is what you have to maybe run when you have so much transition and the transient nature of college football, where you don't build towards something within a more complex offense. This might be the best route. I don't know. And I hate saying, as a talk show host, I don't know. In years past, I would have said, I don't like this. I don't like anything about it. But I don't like 2-10 either. And I know that the football is unsettled right now. And the easiest system in the world to run is something where you get the quarterback involved running and you change the math. And I just, he's the perfect guy for this system. I get it. That's my thought on Thomas Castellanos, the good and the bad. He's going to have some games, Tom, where they take away his legs and we're going to be left frustrated, and you might lose those games. Teams that have elite athleticism that keep him bottled up and make him throw it, you can take it on to the house. You're going to lose that game. But there aren't a lot of teams on the schedule that can do that. So I get it.
Yeah, well, and if you're able to run the football independent of all that, then that changes things as well, which they're going to try and do this year. They're going to try and do it better than they did last year. Be hard not to be better than they were in 2024. But if you can do that, you get into 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6 every once in a while behind the likes of a Pettis and an Adrian Medley, who's the offensive lineman from UCF. I don't know if that was on the list or not, but Adrian Medley comes into Florida State from UCF, and he was their best offensive lineman from, yes, a PFF standpoint, but a large interior offensive lineman for you to play behind, along with Gunnar Hansen. If you can do all of that, then Castellanos' legs become all the more dangerous. I'm with you. Not in theory the system I'd like to run, but for two reasons. It gets you back to the conversation quicker, and then also you're bringing in a lot of new guys, and you're trying to make it all work and land the plane with a bunch of new players that some have been in the system, many have not. The simpler the system when you're doing that, the better for everybody involved. So the transition period, the learning curve, should be a little bit less of a burden for the likes of some of these guys, like Castellanos himself, who, yeah, he's familiar with the system from Gus because he was at UCF initially, but he ran Bill O'Brien's system last year. So there's going to be some unlearning to do in order to get back up to speed. The simpler it is for everybody involved, the better.
Yeah, I'm glad you sprinkled in the last guy, because you're right. That was not on the list, at least on three's transition lists. And I would really quickly just say, as I already mentioned, some of these other guys, Darrell Powers is gone, thank goodness. Hasn't landed anywhere. Dylan McNamara was backup quarterback. Dante Anderson has not landed anywhere. Marvin Jones Jr. has not landed anywhere. Brian Courtney, we wish all these guys luck. Lamont Green Jr. could never put on weight. I don't understand it. We needed to get him on the most powerful of, how shall I say this, nutrients. It did not happen. Darion Williamson is gone. Byron Turner is gone. Minzer is gone. Jackson West is gone. Malik Benson is gone. And there you go. There's where we're at in terms of Florida State since we last talked. Everybody that's gone, everybody that's coming in. So linemen, more of them, please. Check for tackles. Got a guard. Got some down linemen for the defensive side of the ball as well. All right. Okay. Let's see what they add. Obviously, we got 2 more days in this cycle, Tom, right? To the 28th we go.
Yeah,
and then,
for declaration.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. So that was a big catch-up, a weighty one. Quick commercial. We'll be right back. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. So in all, this is interesting. 24 departures one way or the other for Florida State, whether it's a transfer portal or somebody entering their name into the draft or out of eligibility. So you have that. And then you have a total, counting the high school ranks with the transfer portal additions, of 30 coming in. So we're talking about doing some laundry around here, Tom. We're getting some things cleaned up.
Yeah.
You got to go. You're going to Goodwill. We're taking these clothes and you're going I don't wear you anymore. You're washed, you're clean. Somebody else will benefit from you. You go over here. Oh, look at this shiny new shirt. You come on into the fold. You get in here in my closet. That's what we've done. So we've got a lot of new clothes. Take a good look at. Nobody's going to recognize us next year when we walk out there. Look at those shiny pants.
Well, I would say that probably means that we're looking at 36 to 40 players by the end of it, because I think there would be maybe 2 or 3 at most. That's just a blind guess here. But in the high school ranks for the February signing day, you're in the lead for 1 offensive lineman. You might be in a couple offensive linemen. And sometimes somebody just pops up out of nowhere. I know that we offered a receiver, I think Louisiana Tech, because of the JUCO provision of an extra year of eligibility. So that could be another lead that comes in sooner than later. But then you also have transfer portal windows for all the playoff teams that have bowl games that are after the 28th, followed by spring and grad transfer windows as well. So I think probably when you're done here, you're looking at 36 to 40. So not too bad at all. That would be representative of, in the new age of college football, just under 40% if you max it out there, because 105 will be a part of the roster now instead of 85. So that's some significant turnover, buddy.
You know, it was necessary, obviously. You have to cleanse the palate. That food we had last year was terrible. This is not going to work. I don't like that food. I'm sending it back. Give me a new dish. And this is hopefully much more delectable. Hopefully we're all happy with the second effort of the chef, because this last effort ordinarily would have gotten the chef fired. But he got to stay because we flew him in from Paris and everybody said he was great. And we've seen signs in the past that he was good. This dish has to be better. 2 straight bad dishes, you can take it somewhere else. You're going to be at a diner in Wichita. We got to move on. It can't happen anymore. You are a fraud if it happens again. So we shall see. He brought in some chef's aid that should help out an awful lot along the way, and new ingredients. And here we go. I'm ready. I'm ready for all of this. And I'm excited about everything that's going to transpire in this offseason. And it's odd because while I watched the first round of the college football playoffs, like everybody else, and I was deeply saddened by nary a good game, pseudo good game between Clemson and Texas. Other than that, it was all ass, pure ass. And all I could think about was, well, damn it, I want next season to start. I'd really like next season to start because I'd like to see us, and I want to see us be something other than 2 and effing 10. I want to see a product that I walk into Doe Campbell Stadium, whether it be with my father or as a member of the press, and I go, all right, let's watch some good football. Let's see some execution here. Let's see us run the football. Let's see us do some things, play physical defensively. Let's act like we know what one hand is doing while the other does that. Like, let's have a clue what the hell we're doing. I'll deal with everything else, the wins and the losses as they occur. Show me a competent football team, please.
Yeah, I think they've done enough for me to make the Alabama game interesting. The game's interesting now. They've done enough in the trenches. The Darrell Jackson retention was a big one, obviously.
Very big.
But, you're going to have a new defense that you're going to have to sort through. But it's going to be multiple, which means it's hard for the other offense to scheme off of because they don't have any tape with these players of how the defense is going to come at them. And then on the offensive line, go grab me one more transfer between now and the summer that's 300 pounds and proven. That's 4 new dudes. It'd be nice to be a center as well. We would like to. We tried very hard so far this portal cycle to get an anchor in the middle, and we didn't find one. So that they're telling you that they still need one. But go get me a center, and you've got 4 new offensive linemen, 2 of which played very well against SEC competition within the conference, another one who played very well throughout the season for UCF. Yeah, man, it's at least going to be interesting. And instead of you walking in and saying, "Well, I hope we don't get beat by 30," that's good work.
I was checking to see the last time, and you got to go back to 2011, I believe. Washington played Nebraska. I was trying to get a sense of whether or not DeBoer had seen Coach White's 3-3-5 at Nebraska, because Washington coming into the Big Ten. But as it turns out, it looks like they last played in 2011, which was a Nebraska win. I may have that wrong. I better double check that, but that's what I saw up to now. So,
there
you're right.
could be an instance of him playing Syracuse or something along those lines. Some weird out of conference or bowl game, but it's going to be tough no matter what, because again, you've got different pieces. Now, I don't think this defense is going to be at its apex in terms of personnel. So, you could still be stronger and faster and larger and all that kind of stuff, but it will be a tough ask in a week one for a new coordinator, a new scheme to sort through all that mess. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback at Alabama too, right? So I don't think Milroe's coming back, is he?
I didn't check. I don't know. I should know. I'm so fixated on our personnel and what's going to happen to where we are. If I were Alabama and Milroe came back, I'd run him to death.
Yeah, and he might. He's a junior, so I suppose he could. But
the thing about it is, I think he is, right? I would guess he is. He's not going pro.
I just wonder if the board say, like, well, we could probably stand around a little different of an offense.
The only thing I'll say about that, if you get the version where he runs, you got a problem, though. I mean, if you're not physical enough to handle it, you got a problem. You got to be very, very physical.
Sure.
And so a good example was Oklahoma's defense was elite this year. Their offense was a disaster, but Oklahoma's defense was elite. And that's why they dominated Alabama. They made him throw the ball. Like, you're screwed. You're not running all over us.
Right.
They had elite linebacker play. And it's been so long since we've had elite linebacker play that I would be worried if that were the case,
Yeah, well, he was 11 of 26 for $164 and 3 picks. Like if that's in you and you're at Alabama, like I don't know, man. I'm trying to win 11 games here, not dodge two awful performances in the throes of that. That's where it gets interesting. I'm sure that our guy who hates DeBoer has thoughts on it, though, and his state of dress.
Yeah, he decided to stay, by the way. I just pulled it up. He said, yes, he's staying at Alabama. In fact, good for him. He's going for a master's degree while he's there.
Oh, get the most out of it, man. I'm sure you're going to make some good money, too, but that opens the door. It makes it more feasible for Florida State to win the football game.
Yeah, I'm torn on this, Tom, because I think if I'm them, I would just I'm here, and we got to go to break, and we got a real short segment here. It's an interesting conversation. We'll have all off season to talk about it. I can tell you that. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Short segment here because we were so long-winded and meaty in that very first segment of the program.
Hey.
Well, we bring a lot to the table, Tom, and that's how it works. But sometimes you gotta understand that others, that's just too much. It's just too much. So we these last two are really short segments, and I will just tell you that I could have carried on the Milroe conversation for a while. You're right that the SEC will largely celebrate Milroe's return if you're an upper crust program or middle to upper crust program in that league, because you have the personnel that forces him to throw it.
Yeah.
But if you do not, you're not happy to see a man at 6'4", 255 pounds running a 4.5 40, because that's a lot to handle. And I wonder where we'll be. I wonder where we'll. That's what I mean.
It will be an excellent truth serum game, as I call the North Carolina game, about where we are in the trenches. This is why Darrell Jackson was a nice get, and the McCray guy at 280 is a nice get. Maybe need another linebacker or a rover type to get down here and make a play. But 20 rushing touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at in a given season.
That's what I'm saying. It's a hoss, man.
I hear you, but again, the passing stats are what they are too. 10 picks against 15 touchdowns and a couple of stinkers. If you're capable of losing to Vandy, if you're capable of throwing up the egg of all time against Oklahoma and some of the losses and poor performances he turned in the previous season, look, there is a boom or bust with him. I think they want greater consistency. But if there's boom or bust, and now you got DeBoer in another year where he's starting to feel the warmth on his seat, and he's trying to govern you, and maybe he's puckering a little bit because he's coaching away from your inefficiencies, you can see how this turns into a thing in the second quarter.
Speak it into being, Tom. I hope you do. I hope you've just produced it into the ether. You certainly could lay out a scenario that is entirely plausible. I don't disagree with that. I know if I were playing Florida State, they were soft as tissue paper last year. They were not deep. They did not have physicality to their game whatsoever. They didn't have linebacker play worth a damn. They didn't have safeties that came up and made tackles in space or at the line of scrimmage. They had guys who turned it down. One of them is back on the team again this year. Man, I would say to the Florida State, if I were Alabama, I am going big personnel over and over again, and I'm running my quarterback 25 times, and let's see if you're a man. Let's see if you want to come up and do anything about it. And maybe we do. Maybe we do. And we'll get an opportunity to show the world whether or not we can handle that. I just worry that we will not have flipped the roster to the extent that's necessary and have the requisite depth and size to be able to handle that in waves. Now, maybe early you do. I don't know about as the game goes on. And this is why the marriage of offense and defense is going to be fascinating early in the year. Are we able to play keep away? I mean, you've got the run game. If you can play keep away, that's great too. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Stay with Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, and Warchant TV.